On the afternoon of November 29, 1970, a seemingly ordinary hike in the remote Isdalen Valley near Bergen, Norway, turned into the beginning of one of the country's most enduring mysteries. A university professor and his two young daughters, wandering through this rugged terrain already whispered about for its dark past, known locally as Death Valley, were drawn to an unusual scent in the air, the acrid tang of something burning. What they found between the large scattered rocks on the slopes of Mount Orrechen was far from an everyday discovery. At first glance, it appeared to be an oddly posed mannequin, but the grim reality soon became apparent: the charred remains of a woman lying supine on the rocky ground. This was no simple tragedy. The scene was marked by profound contradictions that perplexed investigators from the start. The front of her body was severely burned, her face rendered almost unrecognizable by the fire, yet her back lay almost completely untouched. Her limbs were curled in what is known as a pugilistic stance, a boxer's fists clenched at her torso, an involuntary post-mortem effect in fire victims caused by intense heat, not a sign of physical struggle. Beyond the body itself, the arrangement told an even stranger story. Her personal belongings, meticulously placed around her as if part of some ritual, were not scattered in chaos but deliberately organized. Among these were a broken umbrella, a purse, a matchbox, clothing items, and jewelry, all stripped of any identifying labels. Tags on her clothing had been cut off or scraped away, erasing any signs of origin or ownership. This was no accident. It was a careful act of anonymity. Most chilling was the discovery of a fur hat beneath her body, soaked with petrol. This was no natural fire. The blaze had been started deliberately, with the accelerant hastening its course. Remarkably, there was no evidence of a traditional campfire nearby, no scorched earth, no charred wood, only the remnants of this carefully orchestrated conflagration. The body's placement in such a remote and seemingly concealed area deepened the mystery, suggesting that whoever was responsible intended the act to be found but remained elusive in its purpose. The deliberate positioning of her belongings created an eerie tableau, one forensic experts later described as almost ceremonial. It was as if the scene had been staged to send a message, to conceal more than to reveal. Was this the signature of a killer, a cryptic farewell, or a form of misdirection? The contradictions, fire that damaged only part of the body, objects arranged with cold precision, labels removed to erase identity, signified something far beyond a routine case of suicide or accident. It was a puzzle crafted with chilling intent. This woman, lost to the flames in Norway's icy valley, arrived enveloped in mystery from the very moment she was discovered. The cold earth and silent rocks bore witness to a death marked by puzzling paradoxes, an incomplete burning, a ritualistic scene, and an erasure of identity so thorough it challenged every conventional explanation. What began that day in Death Valley set the stage for a decades-long investigation that would probe not only a tragic death but the hidden shadows of a world shaped by secrets, fear, and silent conflicts. As the days passed and investigators delved into the evidence, it became clear that the story of the woman in the Ice Valley was only beginning, a chapter that would unfold into a complex narrative of intrigue, secrecy, and unanswered questions looming beneath the quiet Norwegian skies. What lay beneath the ashes was a life obscured by deliberate concealment, a haunting enigma that refused to surrender its secrets. And from this stark, frozen tableau, the echo of a shadowy presence emerged, inviting us to ask, who was she, and why was her death marked by such chilling contradictions? In the shadowy aftermath of the Isdal Woman's discovery, the Norwegian police swiftly recognized the gravity and complexity of the case before them. With the elite National Criminal Investigation Service, Kripos, called in for their expertise, what began as a local inquiry quickly evolved into a high-priority investigation, catalogued formally as Case 134/70. The professionals who took up the challenge faced a puzzle whose pieces were intricate, contradictory, and chilling. At the heart of the investigation lay the forensic autopsy, conducted at the Gates Institute, which sought to unravel the mystery of how this anonymous woman met her end in such a harrowing way. The post-mortem examination revealed two lethal causes of death working in tandem. First, a massive overdose of phenobarbital, a barbiturate sedative known for its potency, and second, carbon monoxide poisoning sustained in the fire that consumed her. Toxicological analysis quantified the overdose as between 50 and 70 pills of phenymal, a commercially available form of phenobarbital, undeniably fatal. Yet, this seemingly straightforward finding was complicated by the presence of soot embedded deep in her lungs, a definitive indication she was still breathing as the fire engulfed her. This fact alone cast doubt on assumptions of simple suicide, implying that the fatal blaze was more than a mere act of self-immolation. Adding another layer of suspicion was a bruise found on her neck. The injury was neither conclusively violent nor dismissible, but its existence introduced the possibility of an altercation or physical trauma prior to death. Could this be evidence of foul play, a struggle silenced forever in the ice valley's icy grip, or a tragic accident in her final moments? The investigation meticulously noted yet could not definitively explain this mark, leaving it to quietly haunt the case file. From physical anthropology experts came an estimate of her age and stature, grounded in precise measurements, a woman between 25 and 40 years old, standing approximately 164 centimeters tall. Her brown eyes and long dark hair would have framed a face now lost to the fire's ravages. One detail demanded particular attention: her teeth. Extensive dental work, including 14 fillings and multiple gold crowns, painted a picture unusual for Norway in 1970. Such dental sophistication was rare, signaling perhaps a woman of means or one who had dental care abroad. Recognizing the potential for this detail to narrow her identity, forensic specialists preserved her jawbone and dental tissue, an astute decision that decades later would furnish vital clues in the pursuit of her origins. The investigation took a dramatic and eerie twist 3 days after the body's discovery, with the report of 2 unclaimed suitcases left at Bergen's railway station. Upon inspection, the contents revealed a trove of items that seemed more spy thriller than typical luggage: multiple wigs fashioned for disguise, an array of non-prescription sunglasses with lenses tinted to conceal the eyes, maps and train timetables suggesting extensive travel, and foreign currency spanning multiple countries, 500 Deutschmarks, 135 Norwegian kroner, and coins from Belgium, Britain, and Switzerland. Intriguingly, the meticulous effort to erase her identity extended here as well. Clothing tags were excised, labels on cosmetics scrapped away, even the doctor's name and prescription details on a tube of eczema cream wiped clean. These actions were not haphazard but emblematic of professional tradecraft, a systematic erasure of personal identifiers consistent with clandestine operations, far removed from the panic or desperation of a typical suicide scenario. One fingerprint taken from a pair of sunglasses in the suitcase matched the autopsy prints of the Isdal Woman, confirming ownership and connecting these mysterious belongings directly to her. This discovery painted a new portrait: a woman living under multiple guises, prepared to vanish from any record, each layer of disguise a barrier against recognition. The suitcases, abandoned yet intact, became silent witnesses to a calculated identity removal, raising profound questions about who she was and who might have wished her erased. Despite these troubling findings, the official investigation moved swiftly towards closure. Barely 3 weeks after the body's discovery, authorities declared the case a probable suicide. This rapid conclusion perplexed many involved, especially given the contradictions and anomalies strewn throughout the evidence. Conversations with the descendants of lead investigators years later revealed their private doubts, the belief that the investigation was curtailed prematurely, perhaps stifled by pressure from higher powers. Such abrupt closure shifted suspicion onto possible intelligence involvement, suggesting that the woman's death and hidden life intersected with matters of national security too sensitive for full public scrutiny. The juxtaposition of the autopsy's medical complexities, the brutal scene of the fire death with its forensic signs of life during burning, the suspicious bruise, and the systematic obliteration of identity hinted at a narrative far removed from a simple tragic suicide. Instead, they suggest a clandestine story, one where the woman may have been ensnared in webs of espionage or covert operations, where death itself became a cipher wrapped in shadows. In this anatomy of investigation, every detail, from the lethal overdoses to the carefully erased labels, stands as a testament to a life marked by secrecy and complexity. The precision of medical findings collides with the theatrical staging of death, and the methodical destruction of identity clashes with evidence of a violent end. This collision spins a web where the line between victim and agent blurs, leaving us to wonder who wielded control: a desperate woman, a ruthless adversary, or unseen forces operating in the murky Cold War depths. As the investigation sealed its report with tentative answers, it opened more doors for questions, setting the stage for the ongoing search into her life, her movements, and the shadowy circles she might have danced within. The unresolved tensions between the evidence refused to settle, preserving the mystery and haunting the corridors of truth in the silent shadows of Ice Valley. In the shadowy corridors of Cold War Europe, a figure known only as the Isdal Woman wove a carefully concealed path across the continent, a journey as enigmatic as the coded notebook she left behind. Her itinerary, once indecipherable, has since been decrypted by police and cryptographers, revealing a pattern of travel that hints at a life lived in disguise, burdened with secrecy, and relentlessly evading detection. At the heart of this mystery lies a coded travel log discovered among her personal effects, an unassuming notepad scrawled with cryptic letters and numbers. This puzzling script represented dates and places, a cipher designed not to impress with complexity, but to guard her true movements from prying eyes. Norwegian military intelligence cracked the code, revealing that each notation corresponded to stays in various cities marked by letter abbreviations and dates that chronicled her relentless mobility. From the capital Oslo to Trondheim in the north, and onward to the naval port of Stavanger, her travels traced a well-rounded circuit through Norway. Beyond the fjords and mountains of her adopted terrain, the entries referenced stops in other European cities. The famed boulevards of Paris repeatedly noted, alongside other less identifiable locales represented only by single letters, L, G, R, F, V, W, N, A, and M, letters that remain unidentified yet whisper of further mysteries. What stands out most vividly is the deliberate adoption of multiple identities, a practice she pursued meticulously. Investigators uncovered that she used no fewer than 8 different aliases, each supported by forged passports crafted to her needs. Each persona presented herself as Belgian, a common thread anchored by claims of nationality and broken French or German languages. Names like Genevieve Lancier, Fenella Lorg, Claudia Tilt, and Claudia Nielsen masked the woman's true self, a cloak woven from fiction and fear. Yet when Belgian authorities were queried, these identities dissolved into nothing but shadows, with no records or tangible addresses to anchor them in reality. The street addresses she provided were merely smoke and mirrors, adding layers to her elaborate facade. Witnesses who encountered her painted a vivid, if fragmented, portrait. She was universally described as elegant and poised, a woman who commanded attention without seeking it. Yet beneath this veneer of sophistication was an aura of guardedness, a vigilance that marked her as someone who yearned for invisibility in plain sight. Staff at multiple hotels where she stayed described her as polite but distant, often exchanging reserved looks rather than words. Her movements were marked by restlessness. She was known to frequently switch rooms, sometimes several times during the same stay, an apparent tactic to throw off anyone who might be tailing her. One of the stranger and more enduring details reported consistently by hotel employees and shopkeepers was an unusual garlic smell that seemed to follow her presence. This pungent scent, odd and distinctive, adds an almost surreal element to her story, a small but persistent signature amid a sea of anonymity. Key moments in her movements provide tantalizing clues to her final days. In Stavanger, a young boot salesman recalled selling brightly colored rubber boots that matched the pair found near her body, to a foreign woman who spoke English with an accent and smelled strongly of garlic. This seemingly minor consumer interaction allowed police to track her presence to a hotel registered under the alias Fenella Lorg, weaving a thread through her labyrinthine trail. In Bergen, the city near where her charred body was discovered, a waitress remembered seeing her dining with 2 men who bore the unmistakable appearance of German naval officers, one clearly of officer rank. Such an encounter only deepened the intrigue, suggesting connections to military personnel and perhaps hinting at clandestine contacts or assignments. In the haunting final days before her death, a chilling, though unconfirmed, sighting adds a somber layer to the already complex narrative. A man in Bergen recounted seeing a woman matching her description on a mountain trail, dressed in ordinary city clothes rather than suitable hiking gear. She was not alone. Two men in dark coats, described as having a Southern European appearance, flanked her. The witness perceived a resignation in her expression, as though she was silently pleading or preparing to speak, yet she remained mute as they passed. The image of a woman silently escorted by ominous figures through the uncaring wilderness evokes a sense of duress, captivity, or at the very least, a loss of freedom. Together, these clues weave a portrait of a woman living a life of constance in motion, a restless spectre erasing her footprints across geography and memory. Every alias was a mask, every hotel room a temporary refuge, every change of location a deliberate step to cloud her presence. The systematic removal of all labels from her clothing and belongings reflected a profound intent to obliterate her trail, to become a ghost not only in death but in life. Her existence was a delicate dance of shadows, guarded, elegant, yet marked unmistakably by strange quirks that made her unforgettable to those who crossed her path. The garlic scent, the indecisive purchase of rubber boots, the multiple hotel room changes, the mysterious dinners with naval officers, all form fragments of a puzzle that resists simplification. The eyewitness accounts and decoded log reveal a woman possibly under surveillance or escort in her final days, suggesting that whatever autonomy she once wielded was slipping away. The consistency of her careful records and the escalating signs of duress in her last sightings invite more questions than answers. Was she being coerced, monitored, or protected? Was she navigating her final hours under the control of unseen hands? These findings underscore a life shrouded in deliberate ambiguity, a carefully constructed existence designed to mask the true nature of her identity and purpose. She was not merely a traveler lost in the north, but a shadow moving purposefully through networks and borders, weaving aliases and codes like a spider spinning an intricate web. As the pieces of her itinerary fall into place, so too does the undeniable pattern emerge: a woman living in disguise, a ghost in transit, relentlessly erasing her tracks. Each new clue invites us deeper into the silhouette of a secretive figure whose life was marked by constant movement, guarded interactions, and the enigmatic scent of garlic, a fleeting signature preserved in memory, as ephemeral as smoke in the icy mountain air. This elusive itinerary is more than a record of places visited, it is an echo of a hidden existence lived on the margins of history. And as this chapter closes, we are left with a profound sense of the woman's desperate need to remain unseen, a spectre who moved through the shadows of Europe, her true story known only to herself and, perhaps, those who pursued her silently in the days before the final fire. During the height of the Cold War, Norway found itself thrust into a geopolitical spotlight that belied its serene landscapes and quiet towns. As a strategic NATO member sharing a border with the Soviet Union, Norway's territory became a vital front line in the shadowy conflict waged not with overt weapons, but with whispers, secrets, and spies. It was amid this climate of suspicion, rivalry, and clandestine operations that the enigmatic figure known as the Isdal Woman moved, her footsteps tracing a path entwined with some of the Cold War's most secretive endeavors. What first draws our attention to the Isdal Woman's possible role as a spy is the remarkable alignment between her movements and one of NATO's cutting-edge military projects at the time, the secret trials of the Penguin missile. This anti-ship weapon was a technological marvel, designed to give the alliance an edge at sea. Norwegian Armed Forces documents, released decades later, detail a timeline and location of missile tests that mirror almost perfectly the woman's unobtrusive yet deliberate travel patterns. Her presence in key cities coincided with these trials, suggesting she was observing or gathering intelligence on this classified program. Further lending weight to the espionage theory are eyewitness accounts placing her near military installations. For example, a local fisherman in Stavanger, a crucial naval port and missile testing site, recalled seeing a woman matching her description, closely watching naval activities, an unusual behavior for any ordinary tourist or traveler. This sighting confirms not only her physical presence at sites of military importance, but also hints at a level of surveillance indicative of spycraft. The question then arises, for whom did she work? The Isdal Woman's multiple identities, her meticulous use of aliases, and the complex web of false passports evoke images of a professional operative. Several intelligence agencies have been proposed as her handlers. One of the most compelling theories centers on Mossad, Israel's now legendary intelligence agency. Active during this period and known for employing agents who were difficult to trace, often Jewish refugees with painful pasts and no known relatives, Mossad's modus operandi fits the Isdal Woman's profile strikingly well. The variety of identities she adopted and her apparent role as a covert courier correspond with tactics typical of the agency. Supporting this, modern forensic analysis uncovered isotopic data indicating she was born near Nuremberg and spent her youth near the France-Germany border, regions populated by many displaced European Jews after World War II. This background meshes neatly with Mossad's recruitment patterns, which often relied on individuals with transnational backgrounds and reasons to adopt deep cover. Yet, even Mossad isn't the only agency whispered about in connection with her. Others speculate connections to Palestinian militants, groups active and fiercely secretive, highlighting tenuous links to known figures financing such causes. This theory draws its strength from brief overlapping travel times and the geopolitical tensions of the era, where European cities like Paris served as hotbeds of intrigue and covert meetings. Another avenue points towards Soviet intelligence services, evidenced in part by the fur found beneath her charred body, a style common in Central Asia within the USSR. Could she have been a Stasi or KGB operative, or perhaps an unwitting pawn in the great East-West chess game? The evidence remains circumstantial but tantalizing. Some voices have even suggested she might have been an amateur spy, someone caught in the crossfire of greater forces, rather than a seasoned professional. Her behaviors sometimes appeared clumsy and conspicuous, not the hallmark of a trained spy who freezes like a shadow unnoticed. The codes she used for her travel logs were simplistic enough to be cracked by Norwegian cryptographers with ease, and witness accounts repeatedly recall odd behaviors, frequently changing hotel rooms, carrying a distinct garlic scent, and drawing attention despite attempts at discretion. Such missteps have fueled speculation that she might have been a low-level courier, a novice agent, or perhaps someone ensnared by circumstance and necessity rather than choice. Nevertheless, the presence of multiple false passports, each so carefully crafted and convincing that crossing borders required no explanation, signals more than just a lone wanderer's improvisation. Acquiring just one forged passport in 1970 was no small feat. Possessing at least 8, each supported by corresponding aliases and identities, demands resources and a network capable of supporting serious espionage. This logistical complexity reaffirms that she was linked to a well-established clandestine web, be it governmental intelligence agencies or deeply embedded non-state groups. Intriguingly, the very contradictions in her profile, the polished appearance and guarded demeanor combined with evident operational blunders, paint a multifaceted portrait. Perhaps she was a courier whose job was to transport sensitive materials or information, rather than a deep-cover intelligence officer trained to disappear. Or she could have been a spy operating under stressful conditions, gradually unraveling under pressure, which would explain the mix of amateurish tics and sophisticated tradecraft. Her life was observably fraught, a balancing act between invisibility and exposure. Ultimately, the Cold War's cloak of secrecy enveloped her story in layers of geopolitical intrigue and human vulnerability. Whether a Mossad courier, a Soviet agent, a militant spy, or an amateur caught in a complex web, the woman found in the Ice Valley embodied the shadow wars that left no room for ordinary lives. Each theory underscores a different piece of her puzzle, but all converge on one undeniable truth. Her existence was tethered to a network far beyond that lonely valley in Norway, played out against the stage of international espionage where identities were ephemeral, loyalty was currency, and the stakes were life and death. As we move forward to examine the scientific breakthroughs and alternative explanations in this haunting saga, we are reminded that the Cold War spectre haunting Norway remains as enigmatic as the woman herself, a gallery of spies among whom one figure still vanishes into the mist of history. Science confronts the silence. The modern investigation for decades, the woman found burned in Norway's Ice Valley remained a shadowy enigma, her identity erased, her story locked away in silence. It was only when the case was reopened in 2016 that modern forensic science began to break through the fog, offering new and profound insights into who she might have been and the life she once led. The turning point came from a seemingly small but crucial piece of evidence preserved from the original investigation: her jawbone. In 1970, forensic investigators recognized something extraordinary about her dental work. Unlike most Norwegian dental patterns of the time, her teeth bore an unusual number of fillings and gold crowns, suggesting dental care not common to the region or era. It was this clue that proved invaluable decades later when scientists performed isotope analysis, a technique that reads the chemical signatures locked within tooth enamel to reveal geographical histories. Isotope analysis revealed that this woman was likely born around 1913 near Nuremberg, Germany, a city scarred by the turbulent sweep of history that would soon engulf the continent in war. The isotopic composition in her teeth changed as they grew, revealing she spent critical adolescent years near the border between France and Germany. This finding beautifully supported earlier deductions made from her handwriting style, which bore a distinctly continental flair influenced by French education and culture. Taken together, these results painted a poignant picture of displacement, a woman whose early life unfolded amid the dislocations caused by World War II and its chaotic aftermath. It suggested she may have been a refugee or part of a family uprooted by the war, adding a deeply human context to her shadowed existence. Yet science did not stop there. From the preserved tissue, scientists extracted her DNA and sequenced it with methods unimaginable at the time of her death. This opened yet another window into her origins. Analysis of her mitochondrial DNA, the genetic line passed exclusively from mother to child, placed her in a haplogroup commonly found in southeastern Europe or Southwest Asia. This new genetic layer added complexity to her story. While she grew up in Central Europe, her maternal lineage carried distant roots stretching beyond the continent, hinting at migrations and histories lost to time but now glimpsed through her genes. Equipped with this genetic profile, investigators turned to the burgeoning field of forensic genetic genealogy, a remarkable intersection of science and detective work where DNA from unidentified individuals is compared against global databases to trace family connections. Her profile was uploaded to these international resources, offering hope that relatives might one day come forward. Despite the tireless efforts of police forces, genealogists, and volunteer databases dedicated to solving cold cases, no definitive familial match has emerged. The silence remains, a poignant echo of a life carefully concealed and perhaps purposely severed from its roots. These breakthroughs transformed the Isdal Woman from a nameless victim into a person with tangible, traceable roots. They enriched the mystery of her life with new historical and genetic dimensions, shifting the narrative from pure speculation to grounded, scientific insight. Through her teeth and DNA, she returned to us with a name written in elements and genes, a woman born in a time and place shadowed by conflict, shaped by loss and migration, whose journey ended in the remote cold of a Norwegian valley. Yet, despite these advances, the ultimate question remains unanswered. Her name and true identity still elude discovery. The families who might remember her, or the stories that might explain why she lived under so many false identities, why she traveled as a ghost across Europe, and why and how she met her fiery end, remain hidden in the silence she left behind. This modern chapter, where science confronts the silence, deepens the enigma without dissolving it. It reminds us that technology can reveal roots and origins but cannot always heal the wounds of the past or fully illuminate the shadows of human lives lost to secrets and time. As the investigation continues, the Isdal Woman stands as a testament to how history, genetics, and mystery intertwine, inviting us to keep searching, to remember, and to acknowledge the silent stories waiting to be told. Beyond the prevailing theories of espionage lies a complex web of alternative possibilities that challenge our understanding of the Isdal Woman's life and death. These hypotheses offer divergent motives, each attempting to make sense of the contradictions that continue to baffle investigators and historians alike. One compelling alternative proposes that she was not a spy in the traditional sense, but rather a courier for international criminal networks. In this view, her multiple identities, extensive travel across Europe and Norway, and large sums of untraceable cash could be explained by involvement in the illicit trade of smuggled art, fraud, or other high-stakes criminal enterprises. The post-war era's black market in stolen antiquities was notorious for its sophisticated smuggling routes, and it is feasible that the Isdal Woman served as a trusted intermediary, someone who could move discreetly across borders, avoiding detection by using false passports and carefully crafted aliases. This would account for her use of cash rather than credit, her constant relocation, and her shrouded background. However, this theory finds it difficult to fully account for her apparent proximity to military trials, particularly the secret testing of the Penguin missile, a coincidence that seems unlikely to be mere happenstance. The military connection hints at purposes beyond organized crime, or perhaps suggests an overlap between criminal and intelligence activities not uncommon in Cold War gray zones. Another hypothesis shifts the lens entirely, perceiving the Isdal Woman as a high-class international sex worker. This theory draws on her secretive and mobile lifestyle, the need for anonymity in such a profession, and the pattern of her interactions with men, including the documented presence of German naval officers she dined with in Bergen. Sex work at an elite level, often intertwined with power and politics, could explain her frequent cash payments and the use of multiple disguises to maintain discretion. The continual room changes and guarded demeanor align with someone seeking not only privacy but also control over their environment, necessary in a line of work that can be fraught with danger and exploitation. This perspective further speculates that another individual, perhaps a client or pimp, might have been present during her death, potentially involved in the events that led to her violent end or assisted in staging her suicide. Yet, this portrayal struggles when juxtaposed with the wide array of spy-like tradecraft she exhibited, coded diaries, forged documents, and systematic destruction of identity markers, which implies a level of operational complexity and external support seldom found among sex workers, no matter their sophistication. A more psychological angle posits that the Isdal Woman was struggling with severe mental illness, such as paranoid schizophrenia or a major delusional disorder. This view sees her multiple aliases, cryptic diaries, and intensely secretive behavior as symptoms of a mind mired in paranoia and conspiratorial delusions. Her ritualistic suicide by fire, with meticulously arranged personal items and deliberate attempts to erase her identity, could be interpreted as a final symbolic act born of psychosis. The poetically tragic notion of a woman consumed by her delusions, retreating into fabricated realities while trying to fend off imagined threats, offers a heartbreaking explanation that humanizes her experience. However, critics of this theory point out the considerable logistical challenges it poses. Maintaining coherent travel plans across countries, acquiring numerous high-quality forged passports, and engaging in complex subterfuge requires a level of organization and access unlikely for someone so severely unwell. The psychological hypothesis, while evocative, may not fully reconcile her intricate external circumstances. A fourth, hybrid theory attempts to bridge these disparate explanations, suggesting that the Isdal Woman was both an operative, whether in espionage or criminal networks, and simultaneously suffering from mental instability. This fusion accounts for the paradoxical facets of her life, the presence of professional tradecraft intertwined with erratic, conspicuous behavior that defies the conventional spy's code of invisibility. In this reading, her skills and connections provided her with the tools of deception, fake passports, codes, and disguises, while an unraveling mental state drove patterns of paranoia, secrecy, and ultimately a possibly self-inflicted fire death that appeared staged yet deeply symbolic. The hybrid theory recognizes the complexity of human experience, refusing to simplify her story into a single narrative and instead embracing the possibility that her fate was shaped by both external machinations and internal struggles. Across these alternative realities, a common thread persists. The Isdal Woman had access to a sophisticated network capable of supplying her with forged documents and resources beyond the reach of ordinary travelers. Whether this network was criminal, intelligence-oriented, or otherwise remains an open question, but it strongly suggests that she did not act alone. Her death, arranged meticulously in a remote valley, was more than mere tragedy. It was a message, a final act cloaked in ambiguity and layered with meaning. As we move forward in uncovering the story of the Isdal Woman, these alternative theories challenge us to recognize the multifaceted nature of her existence. In the shadows beyond espionage, we glimpse the complexities of identity, the intersections of crime, vulnerability, and the human psyche. They remind us that her story cannot be confined to a single box or origin, but must instead be understood through the prism of overlapping realities, each one offering clues, contradictions, and the haunting suggestion that some secrets are forever destined to remain just out of reach. The case of the Isdal Woman remains one of the most baffling and haunting mysteries to emerge from the Cold War era, a mosaic of contradictions that confound our understanding even after decades of inquiry. Her death was violent, marked by elements that blur the line between suicide and homicide. She took a lethal overdose of phenobarbital and was found with carbon monoxide poisoning, signs that could point to a self-inflicted end. Yet, she was clearly alive when engulfed in flames, evidenced by the soot in her lungs, and bore a bruise on her neck hinting at a struggle or foul play. The meticulous staging of the fire, the deliberate erasure of all identifying marks from her clothing and belongings, and the careful, almost ritualistic arrangement of objects around her charred body suggest a methodical act far beyond a simple suicide. Her anonymity was absolute, enforced through the removal of labels and tags, and yet her final scene was theatrical, a ghastly display in the remote isolation of Norway's ice valley, seemingly designed to ensure discovery and intrigue rather than concealment. This paradox of the invisible woman created a lasting enigma, her professionalism in tradecraft starkly contrasted by conspicuous behavior. She adopted at least 8 aliases, traveled extensively across Europe with expertly forged documents, and left behind coded diaries and multiple disguises. Yet witnesses recall her as elegant but guarded, often changing hotel rooms, accompanied by an odd garlic scent that stubbornly clung to her. Such behavior contradicts the classic spy's invisibility, raising questions whether she was a seasoned operative or an amateur, possibly someone caught between worlds. The official investigation concluded swiftly, declaring probable suicide, a verdict that many involved in the case quietly doubted. The speed and manner of closure suggest the possibility of a cover-up, perhaps motivated by the woman's connection to matters of national security. Her movements coincided strikingly with secret NATO missile trials, and sightings placed her near sensitive military sites, fueling theories that her death was linked to espionage. Whether she was a covert agent caught in a deadly game of intelligence or an unfortunate pawn in a geopolitical struggle, the evidence points toward a narrative far more complex than a solitary act of despair. Modern scientific advances offered tantalizing clues but no definitive answers. Isotope analysis traced her origins to the area near Nuremberg, Germany, with adolescent years near the French-German border, fitting a picture of a displaced European shaped by the upheavals of war. Genetic sequencing revealed maternal roots stretching to southeastern Europe or Southwest Asia, deepening the mystery of her heritage. Despite being the subject of forensic genealogy efforts, no family has been identified, and her true identity remains elusive. This absence, decades after her death, underscores the profound silence that envelops her story, a silence reflective of the broader Cold War shadows in which personal tragedy and geopolitical secrets converged. In the end, the Isdal Woman is more than a cold case. She is a symbol of the hidden complexities and human costs of a turbulent era. Her story is one of contrast, the visible and invisible, the known and unknown, the ordinary and the extraordinary. From the ritualistic fire in Ice Valley to the faded echoes of her footsteps across European cities, her life and death remain a puzzle, persistent, elusive, and deeply human. Who was the woman from the Ice Valley? It is a question that endures, inviting us to peer beneath the surface of history's shadowed corners, where truth may lie concealed amid layers of secrecy, grief, and silence.